Okay, this this presentation is about Twin City Rapid Transit Snelling Shops, which was really a major facility. It was the heart of the system, and Twin City Rapid Transit took over the old Minneapolis, Lyndale, and Minnetonka in, I want to say, 1886, and it came with this roundhouse of all things, located at 31st and Nicollet. And initially, they made this their heavy shop for the system, but it really wasn't laid out very well for doing heavy work. And then they decided in 1898 that they wanted to build streetcars. And so, right behind this, at the corner of 32nd and Blaisdell, they built the 31st Street shops. This is it right here. And in this building, they built 500 streetcars from 1898 to 1907. Matter of fact, our car 1239 is one of the last group that was actually built here. But this was really not an adequate facility that they learned pretty quickly in just a few years. All the tracks were stub tracks, so everything, whatever was at the back of the line, you had to switch everything out of the way to get it out of there. And of course, the big thing, here we are inside of it, the big thing is that this, even though it had a brick facade, this was a wood structure. And they had had multiple car barn fires over the years. And here you can see you got wood floors, wood everything. And so besides the fact that it was simply too small, it was awkward to use, it was also a fire hazard. And so even though they started building cars here in 1898, in 1907, they opened up Snelling shops over at Snelling University, a much, much bigger facility. And here you see Snelling shops and Snelling station. It was all of a package. The white line outlines the property. So Snelling station is this corner of the property, but everything else you see is Snelling shops. And so they had, multiple buildings to do a whole bunch of different things, and we'll get into that, as well as their whole track department was out here. Their overhead wire department was here. They had a dead storage building in the back. Here's another view taken a little bit later. Gives you a better view of Snelling Station and the intersection of Snelling and University, and then, of course, the whole shop complex over here. So first, we're going to kind of move around the shop exterior. You can see what was there. Oh, I'm sorry, we got the plan here. So once again, here are the shops, and machine shop. This says paint shop. It was actually the Erecting Shop. It says the blacksmith shop, the foundry, forge, the mill building, the central stores building. And you'll notice that this has railroad access from the outside, which was really something they didn't have over at 31st and Nicollet. Here you could get carloads of coal, materials of any sort brought right into the complex.
Aaron, that one you couldn't figure out, I think it said power shop.
It
so
probably
that maybe
did.
where they worked on the motors.
Yeah, I think you're right. So here's a pretty early view. This would be about 1909, 1910, probably when it just opened up. You can see the transfer table to move everything in between the different locations. This is one of the shifter cars. There were 3 of these. They were made out of the original cable cars, which then became the incline cars for Selby Hill. And when they retired that system in 1898, they went and put electric trucks under them, and they made them into shifter cars that could move things around and could fit with a larger car on the transfer table. Here's another view. And this is a view from up on the Montgomery Ward Tower. Here you can see the track department in the foreground, a couple of box cars of some kind of material that have been brought in. Actually, there's a third one over there. We have a couple of panoramic views, which is what causes the distortion here. It's a panoramic camera. This is the central stores building with the loading dock for the building. And from here, they sent out materials to all of the regular streetcar barns. Here is one of the many views of them testing the sprinkler system in the yard. And this kind of shows the backside of the shops with the water tower and the powerhouse. And they had a big overhead crane here that moved coal and stuff around and other things around. This, by the way, they had, I don't know, a dozen or so of these little carts, and they were made out of old horse cars because you just needed carts to move materials around the complex. A couple of later views of the back of it, looking at the powerhouse. Here you can kind of see the gantry crane up here. This is viewed from the other side, and you can see you could unload coal from the coal pile and dump it in this to go to the powerhouse. Here's another one of these little X-horse car carts. Just a view of two things on the transfer table. Both of these were built in-house at Snelling. And then here's a panoramic view of the north side of the property. If you were standing here, the transfer table would be directly behind you. And so this is what they call the oil house here. Out here is a storage building where they kept Thomas Lowry's private car after it was retired and a bunch of other cars, and that building burned down in 1925. Now, there's a rare thing right here. This thing is the Velodrome. It was a bicycle racetrack tilted, and it was only there for about 2 or 3 years. Then I believe over here, this is the overhead wire shop. And then these are all the rail piles for the track department. And so a couple of views. Here they're bringing a boxcar in. The Milwaukee Road would leave it here, and then they'd send one of their work cars out to pick it up. And here a coal car has come in, and one of their cranes is offloading the coal car and loading a pile of it into one of the work cars. And the work car will probably take that out to one of the other car barns. Or they will go and take this out and use it to stock the bins that were out at the ends of the line to stoke the stoves. Here's crane 74, which really its only job was to work the rail pile. They actually didn't build this. This one was a commercial. And one of the interesting things to note about it and the other two cranes, this is insulation in case you accidentally touch the overhead wire with the boom. And then this is the overhead wire department on the northeast corner of the northeast corner of the property with Ward's in the background. And 72 was the St. Paul wire car. Now we're going to look around inside the shop. This is the Erecting Shop, which was the big building at the corner of, at the southwest corner. This eventually became part of the Snelling bus garage and was one of the last buildings removed. But you see they got overhead cranes. This, by the way, is the sprinkler car number, I want to say 59, that was used for sprinkling dirt streets. And here's that truck shop. This is the one, Dick, that you were referring to.
Right.
And I know that because on Russ Olson's map of the complex, it says there were 4 overhead cranes, and here they are.
Okay.
And actually, I guess they call this, I think they call this the machine shop. I'm going to skip one. This is the pipe shop. There's a building labeled pipe shop, and this is full of pipes. So I have determined that this is the pipe shop. It's kind of hard to know which were which. This is the carpentry shop, definitely. You can see the wood, and it also corresponds to the floor plan in that it had just the one track down the middle. And this is probably part of the machine shop in that it has big machines in it. So
yeah,
there's an armature on the floor there.
Okay, that would be right.
So maybe they rewind armatures.
Oh, they absolutely did.
In fact, there's one over on the center left.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, right in front of the guy. Yeah.
All right.
You could also turn commutators there too.
Oh, they could do anything.
Yeah, right.
The thing about Twin City lines, once they got Snelling, I have likened them to the Pennsylvania Railroad, which did everything itself. They made most of their locomotives. Whatever it was, they manufactured it. And Twin City lines had the same mentality. And so, of course, that caused them to want to make their own streetcars. And so here we are in the erecting shop. You can see they didn't go out and buy a frame from someone, they made a frame. And these are cars under construction. More pictures of car bodies under construction.
Wow.
Well, Aaron, you mentioned about the frames. I want to say I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, they bought the basic frame from American Bridge Company in Pittsburgh.
Well, that's a good question. I don't recall seeing it, but then I haven't researched it. So
yeah, for some reason that sticks in my head. So it may not be right, but
yeah, well, hey, I'm open to it. They might have.
Certainly sounds like a plausible place to buy the stuff.
Yeah.
Aaron, in the course of working on 265, we discovered that Twin City Lines also bought millwork from Berglund Lumber.
Oh, okay.
Berglund Lumber was an old Scandinavian millwork shop at the corner of Como and Snelling, southwest corner. And Emil Berglund was the proprietor. And Emil was in his late 80s or early 90s when we were doing business. But we needed 3 window posts to replace rotted posts on 265. And we went to some trouble to get one of these old posts out, and I took it over, and Emil said, "Oh yeah, right, we know about that." He said, "We used to make those for the streetcar company." He said, "And we always made them out of hickory." He said, "You wouldn't want to make them out of oak, because oak, when you twist it, it splits, but hickory won't split. That's why they make hammer handles out of it." And so Emil used to make window posts and other millwork for Twin City Rapid. Also, the Maxim Car Company. Maxim's used to be over on Como Avenue in Western or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. And Maxim used to make wheels. And
I'll be darned.
the streetcar company bought wheels from Maxim. We found that out.
Wow.
So, and then they bought their paint from Minnesota Paint.
Well, of course.
And
All right.
so
Thank you,
they
Bill. I didn't know any of that.
They had a network of suppliers around the Twin Cities.
Well, one thing we do know is that they built their own trucks. Of course, they bought the motors from GE. And this is a set of Twin City number 9 trucks. These are the ones that are under 1,300. You can see they got the roller bearing. But they started buying them from Brill, and then later on they are at Baldwin, and they said, "Yeah, we can do that," and began building their own. So, and that was sort of the pattern on a lot of things, is that they buy it from commercial and then decide if they can make their own.
They look so clean compared to the ones we have, the one we have sitting in the car barn.
Well, this is fresh out of the shop here.
So did they make their own castings as well then?
They had their own foundry.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing they did.
Yeah, very likely.
So I just wanted to show some things that they built. Of course, they built all their snow plows. Here's one of the little lightweights that they built. And of course, they built their own poles. And that's no small thing. There were thousands and thousands of these things all over the city. And they built them all in their foundry. This particular one is across the street from East Side Station. And so then, of course, they also went and designed the lightweights and built 33, I think, for themselves, and a whole bunch of them for other systems. So here's lightweights being built. And I just wanted, these are plans that we have in the file, and I'm assuming that they went and built these as well. This is the underfloor gong for 1300. You can see
Oh,
there's
yeah.
the air pedal, and here's
Yep.
the gong right over here. And I suppose they bought a gong itself from somebody, but this was kind of a case of, it looks like, because they have a plan, I'm guessing they built this themselves. Here's another one. This is a whistle handle. So you can see that here's the wood handle, and then here's all the linkage that makes it work for the whistle. And I don't know if they went out and got it, but it looks like they went and built this. And there's a ton of stuff. We've got plans that show how the lettering is supposed to be on the no smoking sign. Very cool.
Hey, look at the lower right-hand side. Bells and whistles.
Bells and whistles.
Those
Yeah.
I love it.
whistles. And they even have a different design for cars below number 1200 and cars above 1200.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about that? So, and one thing they did is they built, when the Duluth Incline had to be rebuilt in 2010, and that's when they increased it from 1 car to 2 instead of 1 car and a counterweight. Twin City Lines built the whole thing. Now, the bridge structure was there, but they built the cars, they built the hoisting equipment, they built the stations, and basically put all these things on a train and sent it up to Duluth, and then oversaw the construction. This all came out of Snelling shops.
You mean 1910?
1910. Did I say 2010? Sorry. And so here's one of the cars they built for Nashville. They built cars for Grand Rapids, Evansville, Indiana, Nashville, and Chattanooga. And they weren't all alike. They were all different from one another. So here's some of the cars being built. This, I think, would be 1925. They simultaneously built the 4 Stillwater lightweights and the 5 identical lightweights for Duluth Superior. And here's a bunch of the cars being shipped out to, I think, Chattanooga. And so, of course, this was done under contract for the noiseless, the lightweight noiseless electric streetcar company, which I don't think the cars were noiseless. Bill Olson later adopted that. He called he created the fictional weightless noisy streetcar company. So anyway, they get done building most of this, all the standard streetcars, and then in 1920, they finally decide to go and put front exits in all the cars, because there were so many people getting on and off the back was always a hassle. There were big crowds and nobody sat up in the front. And so they put front exit doors in all the streetcars, and at the same time reconfigured the seats. So instead of having double length peanut rows in the back, they put peanut rows in both the front and the back. And they replaced the big heaters and the hot water heating system that was on the front platform with forced air heaters. So they did that to 500 cars in the 1920s. And in the process, reconfigured the motorman's platform. Originally, the controller was right here in the center. Well, in order to get room for the door, you had to go and kind of shift everything over, but then they got the stove out of the way, so that helped. And so that was starting in 1921, going to about 1928, 29. And then along comes the Great Depression. Plus, they were losing ridership anyway. So they decided, we've got to go and convert as many cars as possible, about 500 and some, to 1-man/2-man operation. And so, here we are with the Plan X. Bill Olson actually drew this. And 1300 was in the first group of cars to be done this way, where they put on the air-operated doors and, got rid of the bulkheads. At the same time, I think this is also when they went and, this is probably, I think, when they repainted the ceilings and redid the lighting inside. So then in the 1930s, they did this to about 500 cars. So you can see Snelling's work was never ending. So here's the ad, one of a series of ads showing what a mighty industrial force Twin City Lines was. And so on top of all that work, they would bring in the cars every 5 years, pull the trucks, jack them up, tear them down, replace anything that was needed. And so we have some views of this happening. Here the body is lifted off the trucks. And these big things here, I don't know what you call them, will turn the car over so they could get at the bottom. Come on here. Well, there we go. Here's the bottom in case you haven't seen it. You can see some of the ductwork. This is the heater here with ductwork going up into it. And I got this picture because this actually shows that device that turns the car, which was clearly suspended from an overhead crane. And so here they are. They've taken out the windows. They've taken off the doors. They're, cleaning everything up. Here's one of the armatures pulled. And then on top of all that work, the reconfiguring the cars, the every 5 years, they had a tremendous amount of crash work to do because people were running into streetcars several times a day. And so you get accidents like this. And of course, we've got dozens of claims photos like this that show scrapes and bangs. And in some cases, collisions that were worse. And in most cases, they rebuilt them and put them back in service. Here's the lunchroom. And then here's central stores. Of course, one of the functions was to go and send, excuse me, send the parts car out. And one day each week, it went to each of the car barns with parts. And at the end of the day shift, which I assume was 3 p.m., they would send a special car across the Lake Street line. These are all employees, and it would run down Snelling to Selby and then go across Lake Street. And this was just done for employees to get them back to Minneapolis. So it's 1953. They have sold the PCC cars, and they're repainting the Mexico City ones. They're repainting the Shaker Heights ones. And then this one and this one that you see here, Shaker wanted half of the cars that they ordered to be equipped for multiple unit operation to run in trains. And so they're doing that work as well.
What does that mean, run as trains?
They put couplers on them, and they would run them in 2, 3, 4 car trains.
So they repainted these cars before they sold them? Is that what you're saying?
Sure. I mean, here you can see this is in the Shaker color scheme. And they repainted the ones for Mexico City. They did not repaint the ones for Newark. They just sent them as is. And I only included this. Well, this is at the end then when they're scrapping the cars. But I found this picture, and look, it's a birdhouse.
A Martin house.
Yeah, somebody put up a birdhouse. Pretty tall birdhouse too. So anyway, I'm going to look around now through my photos and see if I can find another picture of this birdhouse, because I think that's just charming. So here it is. It's 1953. There's a whole bunch of cars in storage here. They have filled in the transfer table down on this end, and they're parking buses all over the property, but they haven't moved the buses yet into the building. What they wound up doing is they wound up taking this building, and this building, and they put a continuous roof over them, and then they built big bus bays all out around here to turn it into a bus garage. Now, this is still, the buses are parked outside. I don't know where I got these slides. There are about 5 or 6 of them. Look around the property. Kind of cool. You can see the Max in the old green color scheme. And this is actually the wall of Snelling Station here. So Snelling Station is still active over there. And here they are out in the yard. Here you can see the east end of one of the shop facilities. This right here is the stores building.
So what did they do at a station? What, like at the train station, you mean?
No, all the car houses were called station. Nicollet Station, Northside Station, Lake Street Station, Snelling Station. They just used the word station instead of car barn or car house. Never really known why they did that.
Chicago was the same way.
And so here they are building the bus bays around, this is the Erecting Shop building. And it went on then to become Snelling Garage, and Metro Transit even went and did a rehab to it. They made the second floor accessible. This is exactly the same spot. Here's one of the horrible AM General buses. And so it lasted until, I want to say, around 2000 or so, when they built East Metro Garage to replace this. Now, Metro Council, which now owns Metro Transit, still owns the property. And the city of St. Paul wanted this property in the worst way. And Metro Transit said, unless you can find us a spot for another St. Paul garage in case we need one, we're not going to sell you the property. After a while, it appeared that they weren't going to need a St. Paul garage, but Metro Council did not want to give up the property. So the city of St. Paul has leased the property, and this is what's on it now, Alliance Field. But it is not owned by the city. It's still owned by Metro Transit.
But it would make a hell of a bus garage.
Yeah, don't you think? So anyway, there you go.